One Saturday, I woke up in my quiet apartment on a chilly March morning. I sat up after stretching, feeling the loneliness again. It wasn't new, it was always there. High school was a time where he had a group of friends, but no dates. College was a wide-awake, lonely nightmare, hanging out at the campus pub, people passing through my life, classes, projects, grades, solitude, not even intended, religious clubs, video game meetups, volunteering, no one materialized. Girls were casual friends, but they usually had boyfriends. Some of the gamer girls played hardcore RPGs, others played first-person shooters, screaming obscenities into their microphones. I played Mario Odyssey and Mario Kart, and college girls never played those games. Oh, I played 100 hours of Breath of the Wild, a few would say, and then call my Mario obsession cute. It seemed like everyone else played video games for the cred or for the experience, to dominate. I was the last one standing who was playing for fun. That was lonely. My name is Derek, and I was 34 when this story went down. Katie, the woman I met and spent 2 years dating and trying to figure out, was 32. She was in the marketing department, mostly handling copywriting. I would see her sometimes, but I never got the impression that she saw me any more than anyone else, which was not at all. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me stop for a minute and thank the We Are the Music Makers YouTube channel. They find human stories of love, pain, difficulties, betrayal, but in the end, acceptance, and let us tell our stories because they matter. You matter. You might be lonely, but you're involved in people's lives, even if no one acknowledges it. If you like this story, please give a like and consider subscribing. There is a lot of nonsense on YouTube, and this channel is trying to provide something that might make you think, laugh, or mostly hope. Anyway, when I graduated from college with my accounting degree, I became the most solid, non-threatening guy in the company. No one feared the new guy who spent his time on spreadsheets. No one worried if I was going to step on them. The accountants did their own thing, but I wasn't fascinating either. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years in, even a promotion, and I was still the human equivalent to office furniture. 10 total years passed. I was one of the lead accountants, but I was still alone. One day, Katie, who was only around for a few months, came to me with tax questions. Of course it was tax questions. In January and February, the accountant gains a tiny bit of attention because he knows what can and can't be deducted on a 1040 form. I answered her questions, she smiled and thanked me. Someone else who appeared picked my brain and then left. Then something I wasn't expecting happened. About 3 days later, I was sitting in the company cafeteria, and she asked me if she could sit down. I nodded. She pulled a salad out of Wendy's bag and looked down at it. I don't talk to people a lot. Maybe I have trust issues, but you seem, she paused, honest, maybe to a fault. She pulled a fork out and poured dressing on the croutons. What's your deal? It wasn't accusing. It wasn't pained. It was just a question, an assumption that I had a deal. I thought for a long time. I've spent my entire life feeling invisible. Even when I've tried, even when I've had hobbies, I shook my head. Story of my life, I guess. Is that a deal to you? She looked at me, her eyes widened. Wait, you're the lead accountant at this office, you make good money, you're willing to participate in company functions, and you've just been overlooked? I looked down. That sounds right, I think. Then, without any warning, seemingly on an impulse, she pounded on the table. I started, looked up at her. There was a gleam in her eyes. Then she said something I didn't expect. If a girl has made a few mistakes, that's not the end of the world, is it? I stared at her. Cheating? She shook her head. Stealing or money issues? No, or at least I don't think so. Lying? Cruelty? Insults? I asked in succession. She shook her head again. I thought for a bit. I can't think of any other deal breakers. Her eyes lit up. It was like she had a plan that had formulated in her mind. Fine, Derek. I want you to ask me out. I looked up again, not shocked, but it was a surprise. Ask me out. You want someone to see you? Here I am. I stared at her. If you're punking me, I swear I will never speak to you again. Her plotting smile softened, almost into something gentle. Try me. I raised an eyebrow. You want to go out for piz? Yes, she announced. Pizza. Yes, that was a surprise, but she had turned into something like the overly enthusiastic girlfriend meme, and I had to admit I liked it. Over the next few weeks, Katie took note of the things I liked and seemed to tune herself to that. She showed me a picture of a model, and I said I liked long hair. A few days later, she told me that she had canceled a haircut she had planned on. She asked me about a specific coworker's makeup, and I told her I thought less is more. A woman doesn't become more attractive as she applies more makeup. She just looks more like all the other women. And then the next day, the colored eyeshadow, the rouge, and the eyebrow penciling was gone. After she had started coming into work in a blouse and a skirt, because I had mentioned I liked the girls who wore culottes when I was in high school, I decided to have a talk when I caught her in the break room. Katie, I like you, and I appreciate that you're trying to be attractive to me, but I don't want you to change who you are or to pretend to be something you're not, just because we talk. I was dating you because you saw me. That's not going to change. She just smiled. Derek, I spent my entire life trying to impress all the other women in college, in social situations, and here at work. It's exhausting. Nothing has ever been enough, but every time your eyes light up over the slightest stuff because I make a change, it becomes instantly worth it. She took my arm. If I was trying to impress all of them, she pointed out at the office, it takes over an hour to get ready. If I'm getting ready in a way that you like, it's a half hour. She pauses, her eyes looking at me dead serious. You're giving me a half hour of my day back. She touched my cheek. It's not fake. It's a version of myself that I've been unlocking. It's real. And if I'm being embarrassingly honest, I like this better. I sighed. All right, Katie. I paused, trying to say the right thing. Just be sure. You look amazing. I just don't want to get used to this delightful version and then have you go back. She laughed at that. It wasn't calculated or derisive. It was the delighted laugh of a woman who knew what she wanted and felt the joy of sharing. She leaned into me, resting her head against my shoulder. Just for a second. Don't worry, Derek. I like this. It feels right. And I have to admit, the changes, though a little variable, held. She didn't always wear the blouses or skirts, and when she went out with friends, she tended to do her makeup more. But for me, she seemed to be just as much in her element, looking simpler. And if it was a strategy, it worked. At first, I was interested. In a month, I was struck. In 3 months, I was hopelessly in love. And, looking back, maybe she was aiming to land me, but she was just as sincere about our relationship as I was smitten. She wanted me, she wanted to be around me. She eventually admitted that, yes, it was partly that she thought I would be easy to land. But I was stable. My income was good and would probably get better. And she also wagered I'd be devoted if she gave me her full attention. Yes, it was a bit of a strategy, but it was strategy with intent. And isn't that how a woman catches the man that she wants? At first, I thought it could be quietly forgiven, but as she smiled at me first every morning, brought my favorite coffee a couple times a week, and told me how lucky she was to have me, I realized that there was nothing to forgive. We were in love. Somehow we were able to get through the awkward office gossip phase relatively quickly. I think our personalities helped. Katie was reasonably likable, and her office charm had increased with her decision to associate herself with me. And me. Well, I was still the quiet, always reliable lead accountant, still mostly invisible. But now, when anyone saw Katie, smiling at being with me, I was there, and that association helped me as well. Soon there just wasn't anything to talk about. We were the good couple. 3 months turned into 6, and then it was getting cold. We went to my family's house for Thanksgiving. She is so affectionate. Even when she chides you, there's this look in her eyes that she doesn't want to be without you. My mother said, in the evening my father brought out Cards Against Humanity. No joke. I'm sitting with my girlfriend, with my parents and some aunts and uncles, playing this juvenile and filthy card game. But everyone was laughing. No one was taking things personally, and through it all, laughing at as much as anyone else, always holding my hand or touching my arm, was Katie. Christmas came. We exchanged gifts. I got her a pair of earrings. Nothing outrageous. Amethyst, her birthstone. She got me 2 hoodies. One was from my alma mater, University of Illinois, and another said Daddy's Little Monster. I held that one up. This feels like Hot Topic, and I have a feeling that I'll never really get the chance to actually wear it. Katie looked at me coyly. You're probably right, but you have to admit, it would probably look better on me than it would on you. I nodded in agreement, but then she pulled a smaller gift from behind a pillow, and when I opened it, it was a very nice Citizen watch, metal band, deep green face. Katie, this is too much. This must have been hundreds of dollars. When she wouldn't hear of returning it or even getting a less expensive watch, I had always worn a Timex. I decided it was time to make the next move. We didn't have New Year's plans. Katie had been burned out with too many champagne bottles, always being by herself. Maybe next year, Derek. I just want this new year to be ours. I hadn't expected that, but it made things easier. We bought frozen pizza and sparkling wine and watched movies until 11:30. Then we switched to a local TV station with music, TV personalities talking about New Year's expectation. We counted down the last minutes together. And when the new year turned over, she pulled me close for a kiss that probably saved our relationship. I made a point to ask her about her New Year's resolution. She said things like fitness, starting a hobby. Nothing crazy. She asked about mine, and I told her my resolution is to lock down the woman I was crazy about. Then I pulled out the little black box with the engagement ring I had bought the day after Christmas. I handed it over to her. She reached for it slowly, hesitantly, opened it, then looked at it for a long time. Then she closed it, put it on the coffee table, and pushed it away. I watched my emotions going from hopeful to worried to distressed and finally to upset. Is something wrong? I asked when she put the box down on the table. Derek, I think there's something you should know. I told you I was engaged and that the engagement fell apart late. She looked down. I left him at the wedding. I got to the venue, looked at the dress, and then told my maid of honor that I just couldn't do it. I packed as much as I could, went to the apartment, called my mother, and told her I wasn't getting married. And then I got in my car and just disappeared for a few months. When I finally had to stop somewhere, I looked around this town, began filling out applications, and lo and behold, I got hired for the copywriting job. She pushed the ring back to me. Do we have to be engaged? Do we have to plan to be married? Do we have to get married? I just find the whole thing terrifying, and I don't know why. My New Year's was ruined, my engagement rejected, my hopes and dreams crushed. She never told me about leaving a fiancé at the altar or that she wouldn't accept a proposal. I stood up. I can call you an Uber or I can drive you home, but I can't pretend celebrate the new year now. She could see my distress. I could see fear in her eyes. Maybe she was wondering if she could take it back, change her mind. But I turned off the TV. She asked me to drive her back to her apartment. I did. Little was said. When we reached her apartment, she offered to have me come up. I shook my head. I didn't want to. She told me she still loved me. I loved her. Of course I did, but I can't live without knowing a woman wants to spend the rest of her life with me. She asked me if we were over. Was there any room to talk or discuss? I said we could talk, but my confidence was shot. I didn't know how to process this. She thought for a long time. How about if we met on neutral ground? 36 hours, morning of the 2nd? I agreed. She kissed me, climbed out of my car, and went into her apartment complex. I spent an hour or so driving around, nowhere in particular. It was early morning when I got home. I cleaned up the living room, put stuff away, and quietly went to bed, still half broken and disappointed. I spent the whole of New Year's Day thinking. I had a vague idea, something about making her propose. The thought came slowly, but by dinner time I had the threads together. Something that I thought would give her time to process the relationship into something she could accept as permanent. She never denied that she chose me. She picked me because she was lonely and I was invisible, so I needed her to pick me again. When I showed up at our favorite coffee shop at 9 a.m. the next day, I was ready. We talked vaguely about what we did New Year's Day, then she took my hand. She thanked me for not running away. She knew I had something on my mind, and she was ready to hear it. I took a deep breath. Katie, I love you, and I know you love me too. But love isn't enough. I need to see that you're prepared to make a real commitment in our future. This is my thought. We can have until the end of this year. 364 days to think and consider what you want. You picked me for this relationship, so I'll want you to pick me for a future. I tried proposing, and now I know that was never going to work. So if you haven't proposed to me by the end of the year, that will be the end, and we'll both just move on with our lives. I watched as she digested that plan. I could see the concern in her eyes. I could tell she was afraid. She sat for a long time drinking her coffee. I had prepared for every possibility, that she might reject it entirely. Tears, that she might panic and try to fix things. But she finished her coffee, looked down at the empty cup, and nodded. A year, huh? To try to figure things out and to ask you to marry me? Not much room for emotional detachment. Can't just respond weakly to a second attempt on your part. She swore under her breath, but a minute later she looked at me. But we can be normal between now and then? I thought about it for a bit. I spent less time thinking about questions she might ask, but I said, normal until after Thanksgiving. I'll need December to gather things, drop stuff off, get stuff from your place. I'm not saying that things will be over, but I'm making a clean break on January 1 next year. I'm not waiting to let things linger. She sat with that for a long time. I was afraid you'd come back and say it was over. I can't promise you that I'll be able to figure things out in the next year. It sounds like the hardest thing ever. There was a long pause. But I'll try. I'll try to figure things out, and if I can see it, I'll propose to you. I sat there drinking my coffee. She asked, but we're normal right now. Normal-ish, I responded. As close as one can get to be when his proposal has been turned down and he's trying to hold himself together. She quickly took my hands. Derek, I love you. I really do. I want us to be happy. There was a look in her eyes, a realization. Something clicked in her. But after a moment, it passed. She looked at me again, and she smiled. It was half real, half contrived. I didn't really care. The ache of the rejection still resided in me. If you're done with your coffee, let's go our own ways, and I'll make you dinner, just to show you my feelings haven't changed at all, she suggested. I nodded, agreed, and soon I was out in the cold winter air, waking back to my place. The relationship went back mostly to normal. In the spring, we did a road trip, around 5 or 6 states, just enjoying the small towns, a few big cities, and the open road. We ate at roadside diners. Mostly stayed at the tiniest motels and moved on. Genuinely, it was a blast. Sometimes we'd be sitting on an old couch and she would look at me. It was that same strange look from the coffee shop. A couple times she even started to say something. Derek? I'd look up. She would open her mouth, hesitate, close it, and then look down. Nothing. Every time, I had hoped she would say what we both knew what she was thinking. In June, she asked me out to dinner. Of course I accepted. Since the beginning, she would sometimes offer to take me out on her own dime, and it was sweet. This time, though, as we were eating, she kept looking at me. Several times it seemed like she was about to start, but then didn't. I acted like things were normal, didn't press. Maybe I should have encouraged her. If I had it all over again, I think I would have. I could have said, it's okay, go ahead and say it, I want you to. But I didn't want to be Alex, waiting at the chapel for a wedding that would never come. In September, she asked me what I would need for a proposal. What would she have to do, I thought for a few minutes. Then I said, I want to know that being without me would be the worst-case scenario, that life would be meaningless if I was gone. Because at the end of the year, it's going to be pretty clear that you can, and choose to, live without me. She nodded. Then she sat down on the couch and silently held my hand. In November, she said that her parents had invited us to Thanksgiving. I sat silently, thinking, I think you need to tell them what's going on between us. She stared at me for a minute. She tried to find her words. Why? Because something is going to fundamentally change while we're there, and we're both going to feel it. I'm going to be awkward because I like your parents, and they seem to think well of me, but they should know that things will start winding down when after the meal is over. Her eyes turned wide. I think she even started shaking. You're serious, she whispered. I just nodded. I have been the whole time. She sat there next to me. Tell my parents. There was a long pause. Do I have to tell everyone else? I looked down, then shook my head. No, I just want your parents not to be surprised. Just give them the real story. I proposed you couldn't accept it, and I set a deadline. I remained silent. It'll make things easier for them if they have to deal with the fallout of my being gone. She stared at me, then she took my hand. I don't want you to go. I know, I responded, but I have a life to live, and I can't live it day to day. I want a family, kids running around underfoot. I paused again. And I don't see that happening with you anymore. Her eyes widened and she put a hand over her mouth. I think right then she realized that this moment was the first step out the door I was mentally giving up. We watched TV for a while, And that night she was unusually tender and affectionate, and I didn't ruin things for her, but I could see the emptiness in her eyes. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, she told me she was going away for the weekend. I admit that I'm a slightly jealous boyfriend. We do track each other, and I'm not above checking up on her social media, and both clearly pointed to her being at her parents' house. Good. She was keeping things honest. When she came back, though, there was a glint in her eye. There was a hint of confidence in her look that I hadn't seen since the rejection. It was powerful to me. It was magnetic. Our year had been affectionate. It had been active, but it had also been quiet, almost somber, and that energy she was bringing between her return and our trip to Thanksgiving was infectious and enticing. I caught myself second-guessing, asking if it was worth walking away from this version of Katie. Thanksgiving came and she was nothing but nervous energy. We threw our stuff in my car and we were driving down the road. She found a classic rock station and was flailing in the passenger seat to the biggest rock hits of the '80s. When Endless Love came up, she got quiet. But at the crescendo of the song, she took my hand from the steering wheel and moved it to her cheek. We arrived at her parents' house, and there was a strange smile on her face. She came in, and the first thing she did was bring me to the backyard. There was an oversized rocking chair, and she had us sit in it. When I came here 2 weeks ago, I told my parents like you told me, but my grandma was there as well, and she told them that she and I should go out to McDonald's together. And while we were there, she told me all about how happy she and Grandpa had been, how he had cared for her, how they had raised Dad and his brothers, and then she admitted something to me. I refused your grandpa the first time. Grandpa let things go, and for 8 months he had tried to forget. But she had been doing a lot of thinking, and she had decided that if he ever gave her a second chance, she wouldn't mess it up again. She pulled out a watch box. It said Tissot on it. She then looked at me a little embarrassed. I don't really know how a woman is supposed to propose to a man, but Grandma said that if we're in love, then I should do whatever it takes to keep you and to make you happy, and then it all clicked into place. She looked at the watch case. I wanted to get this engraved, but I couldn't have returned it. She looked at me. I didn't want to trap you, but I do know that I can't lose you. I don't even want to make you think about leaving me. I want this to be settled, once and for all. She opened the box, and it was a metal band blue-faced men's watch. She looked up at me. Will you marry me, Derek? I smiled at her. Yes, Katie, of course I will. The smile I saw was the brightest I had seen in months, even better than the fun she was having in the car. She pulled the watch out of the box, undid the latch, put it on my wrist, and tightened it. Then she said, I'm locking you down. You're not getting away. A cousin looked through the screen door, saw the watch on my wrist, and asked, Did he say yes? She looked at me. I looked at her. Then I turned to the cousin and said, You better believe it. The cousin ran from the door, and I could tell she was informing everyone in the house. When we came in, everyone congratulated us. And for 6 hours, we were the toast of the house, after dark. And when half the family was gone, we were sitting quietly on the porch once again. Suddenly, she began crying. I put a hand over her shoulder. What's wrong? I asked. She shook her head. It's not that. I just never realized how amazing this would feel. Every day since the new year, I thought about asking. She hesitated. If I had known it would feel this incredible, I'd have asked the moment you told me I needed to. She let the tears fall. I fretted and worried for almost a year, and now I feel like I wasted it because I could have had this in January. I leaned over and kissed her. Well, Katie, I'm just glad you did. She wiped her eyes and looked at me. Then she wrapped her arms around me, pulled me close, and said, Me too.